There is a flat earther out there who is considered the modern day father of the movement. He has amassed quite a following, and most flat earthers will at least give some credit for this person for introducing them to the flat earth community. I am of course talking about Eric Dubay. Recently, he has released a documentary, a flat earth documentary entitled Level. Now, it's a flat earth propaganda piece, but how many of you remember me saying this? I am going to pull every single minute of this film apart. I'm going to put so much effort into it that when you search for this film, you'll be finding the debunk of it from me first. Well, that starts right now. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Flat Earth Friday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. So Eric has released a 1 hour long documentary on flat earth, which means it's now my job to debunk every single last little piece of it. I warn you now, I'm going to be very thorough, so this entire debunk will likely be spread over 3 separate videos. Make no mistake, this will likely be my most comprehensive debunking ever. So without further ado, let's get started, shall we?
So there it is. The Earth from outer space. Do you believe this is a real, live recording?
Do you believe?
How about now? Does this make it more believable?
No. Many different space agencies have taken many different photos of Earth from space.
Ask yourself,
Is this real? Do you believe? Is this real?
let's try this another way.
Breaking news. NASA finally did it. They finally did it. They're finally live streaming the Earth spinning from outer space. The world is celebrating. This one will go down in history.
The thing is though, there has been a live stream of Earth from space for ages. This clip here was taken from the ISS live feed. It shows Earth spinning in space. As we know, the spin is only 15 degrees per hour. If you're waiting for Bob here, by the way, my apologies, I'm trying to withdraw from using him.
A 15 degree per hour drift.
As you can see, it's proving difficult. Thanks, Bob. The point is, this rotational speed is very slow, twice as slow as the hour hand on a clock. You can see it spinning, just not very quickly.
Convinced? Well, if you didn't fall for that, then why would you fall for this? Maybe you just never paid attention.
So that little dial that they're highlighting there is the altitude in kilometers. Not really sure why they're highlighting it though.
When you do pay attention, you start to notice things. Are you paying attention?
This is likely a fisheye lens. No one's claiming that it's not. But crucially, we're not claiming that this is solid evidence for curvature. It's just a camera that SpaceX uses to show the outside of a rocket. So we've got ODD TV, a flat earther who is so convinced that the Earth is flat that he now spends his time making rap videos.
I would, get up, weigh my glass, drink most of it, leaving a little bit at the bottom.
That's Dave Murphy. He drinks urine. Ah, Flat Earth millionaire. He owes me $200,000. Don't know Santos Bonucci. Or that dude. Ah, there's the big name drop. And there is our local yoga instructor. Now, this is by no means a pop at yoga instructors. I'm sure they're very good at what they do. My point is here that they aren't qualified scientists.
Did you know that starting at the end of 2015 through 2017, flat Earth was one of the top search terms in the USA, let alone the world.
And did you also know that from 2017 to the present, it has become almost irrelevant? And in actual fact, more people are now interested in foreskin than they are in flat Earth. Ouch.
While most of you were falling for the political charades, the rest of us were trying to discover the true nature about our world.
My name is ODD TV. Screw it. I'm going to make a YouTube channel and start talking in videos.
There has never been one experiment that proves that the Earth is in motion.
Foucault's pendulum, gyroscopes, the Coriolis effect, trade winds, and ocean currents, to name a few.
When you try to find the curvature of the Earth, it's nowhere to be found.
Ranty's photo says otherwise, ODD. Check this video out quickly before carrying on if you haven't seen it yet. It's golden.
Unless you're looking at footage from GoPro cameras that have fisheye lenses, Hollywood movies, or NASA propaganda.
Started making the videos in 2014, early 2015. Started getting noticed. You're living in a world where there's fake people faking events on TV in order to move agendas forward with the Earth being flat. I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. There was videos everywhere. There was videos of people doing science, putting balloons up with a camera that doesn't have a fisheye lens on it, like a GoPro lens, a wide angle lens.
Oh, you mean like Mr. Sensible did? Because I think you'll find he kind of smashed that one for you.
And they were using these cameras that didn't have those. The horizon rose to eye level, which would be impossible on a ball that would be falling away from you as you rose up.
That's not how this works, ODD. This picture here was taken by MC Toon on a flight from Anchorage to Minneapolis. Here is another example from someone else. And another. Your eye is not a scientific instrument. The horizon may appear to rise to eye level, but that isn't always the case.
There's people putting out top 10 NASA hoax videos, debunking the moon landing, picking apart NASA just left and right. It was awesome. Awesome time for YouTube between 2015 and 17.
And when did I start my channel? Just saying, just saying.
Even Google mentioned it during their commercial. Do you remember this? Why would Google be promoting this?
As a joke?
As a joke? No. We know why. They were panicking.
Really? Panicking over what? Why would Google care if the Earth is flat or not?
Panicking because the platform they purchased 10 years ago was collapsing with truth. The powers that be would not allow that.
As we want to provide users with authoritative, trustworthy information.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I only have a minute and a half, and I don't really need to hear what you're trying to provide. I want to know how you're dealing with all these conspiracy theorists on your platform.
So the first way is by demoting low quality content and promoting more authoritative content. And the second is by providing more transparency for users. So we're introducing boxes that provide factual information at the top of results that have shown themselves to turn up a lot of information that is counterfactual, such as searching for the Earth is flat on YouTube, where you see a lot of...
Your response is to put a box saying, nope, the Earth is not flat.
Correct.
Okay.
So instead of deleting all of the millions of videos we have made, they simply decided to bring in their puppets to reiterate the agenda at stake.
Let's not mess around here, Eric. Those videos you speak of, those millions of videos, are patently false information. They can lead people down paths that can literally destroy their lives. Listen to what Seek Truth, Speak Truth said on the Simon Dan podcast.
How, looking back on that now, how do you think of yourself back then? And because it affected you quite a bit personally, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, it did. It pushed a lot of my sort of people close to me away, friends, if you know what I mean. So it really did have quite a big impact. And it's a bit of a shame, really, because obviously we've had all the lockdowns, well, I say a shame. But I haven't had that opportunity to kind of get out and meet those people again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I kind of know that, you know, people will actually invite me to barbecues again.
Yeah.
We are already sufficiently motivated to invest the necessary resources and people in addressing this threat.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake, honestly.
The Earth being flat is getting out of control. Can you please help?
When you stand on the shoulders of those who came before, you might just see far enough to realize the Earth isn't flat.
1 + 1 is?
2.
What color is the sky?
Blue.
And the Earth is?
Round. Second is here.
This float celebrates flat Earth theory that is spreading ironically around the
World and its possible roundness.
Spinning.
Now they are talking about it.
Yes, Eric, because a group of people started to actually doubt it. This means we could then take that fact that people are doubting it and turn it into a joke, because the world being a sphere is in keeping with other facts like the sky is blue.
They want you to search for it, because they already changed their algorithm to be set up in their favor.
What is this trash?
None of this tells you our side of the story. These are all videos they put together, so you can watch and learn nothing.
Yeah, Professor Dave, woo!
Nothing that any of us would show you. Like here, have you ever seen a time lapse of the sun? Does it look like the Earth is rotating backwards and the sun is still? Or does it look like our sun is simply moving across our sky, traveling away from your perspective?
Well, from our perspective, which by the way is on a giant planet that is orbiting the sun, then the sun does appear to move. But that is all irrelevant, because we have probes in space right now monitoring the sun from an orbit as close as 4 million miles. We see Mars move across the backdrop of stars one way and then the next 2 months later moving the other way. That is precisely because of our own orbit around the sun and Mars's.
Again, but with some inversion. You can clearly see the sun not only decreasing its size, but heading towards its next destination with a slight turn before it disappears from your line of sight.
That's really funny, because one of your own, Eric, one of your own flat earthers did this experiment and found that there was no major angular size change as the sun sets. Lens flare.
While Google would make sure when you type in flat Earth that nothing like this would ever pop up, many agree the science regarding our sun is far from settled.
Many agree. How many? 6?
We're told that the sun is a massive ball of burning gas 93 million miles away.
Oh, here he is, allegedly Dave.
But if that were true, then all the light that arrives here would be parallel because it's so far away.
And for all intents and purposes, it is.
And it has to be parallel because one of the most often cited supposed globe proofs is Eratosthenes' experiment between Alexandria and Syene, by which he calculated the size of the Earth.
Bloody clever stuff, that.
For that calculation to be accurate, the light must come down parallel. The only problem is that that's not what we see. If you go out on a sunny day with broken cloud, what you'll see is that light comes down at angles, diverging angles.
That is purely because of the perspective of the viewer. Look at these train tracks. Now, we know that these train tracks are parallel, otherwise the trains won't be able to travel on them. Yet they appear to be diverging still from the viewer's perspective. We know that those tracks don't come together at the horizon. Yet flat earthers want us to believe that the sun is literally behind the clouds in this image. Watch out, lady, there's a giant ball of nuclear reactor right outside that window.
And that means that we can follow those light rays back to the source and triangulate the sun's height above the Earth.
Yeah, just like we can triangulate the distance to the end of those train tracks.
Proving that the sun isn't millions of miles away. But we can also perform physical experiments that prove that these crepuscular rays, as they're called, can only be recreated with a light source that is small and close.
It doesn't take a genius to understand that the further the light source goes up, the more the sun rays would spread out and become parallel. The reason you'd even think that the sun...
If the Earth was flat, wouldn't it be sunny all the time?
Good point.
I mean, have they ever even thought about it?
Well, if you'd let me finish, the reason you'd even think the sun would be visible from anywhere on Earth is because of the images they have shown you. No one promoting this stands for truth. You can keep believing in your fantasy gas ball 93 million miles away.
You can keep believing in your fantasy gas ball.
While we keep experimenting to try and figure out what the sun actually is.
But we know exactly what it is. Has a flat earther ever looked at the sun's rays through a spectroscope? You can literally read off a list of elements from the absorption spectrum if you do. We've studied the magnetic field of the sun and have even studied other stars in other phases of life to understand how our sun will evolve and die.
And how close it could be. With a local hotspot, it should be easy to comprehend that the sun is small and close to you.
To put that in perspective, imagine a table 2 meters wide in a completely dark room, and you're holding a small but very bright light bulb, 3.4 millimeters across, and you are holding it about 31 centimeters above the table. What you'd see is a circular pool of light directly on the table, beneath the light bulb. But on the other side of the table, it would be in darkness. Now, it seems to our mind that if you were on the other side of the table, you would see the light because it's, above the table. But that's not true, because on that part of the table, it's in darkness, meaning that the light isn't physically reaching that part of the tabletop.
Dave. The image on the screen right now is literally debunking what you're saying. Look. The area of the table that the camera is in darkness, yet we can see the bulb emitting light. Also, how does the sun manage to wrap its light around the edges of the flat Earth, yet leave a circle of darkness in the middle during the southern hemisphere summer?
Your senses are correct.
We're also told that the sun sets because as the Earth rotates us away from the sun, it's actually obscured by the physical curvature of the Earth. That's not what we see.
What we see is a local sun that is taking its local light with it.
The thing is, Eric, we've got this thing called an atmosphere, which is tremendously good at refracting light. It does so especially well when we're looking at the sun through more of the atmosphere at dawn and dusk.
What happened to the horizon glowing across half of the world? Most sunsets are already fading through pollution, dander, chemtrails, and fog. Plus, refraction will always make the sun seem like it's going down, as well as your perspective.
It would appear to sink down in your field of view. That's perspective.
Ah, so perspective counts here, but not with crepuscular rays. Gotcha.
The further away you get from it, the lower it will appear. It doesn't physically change its height, it just appears that way to your eyes, until eventually it will disappear behind the horizon formed by your eye's vanishing point.
Because we are rotating, Dave.
Your eye has an angular resolution of 0.2 degrees.
I think he means 0.02 degrees. Well done, Dave. Getting the numbers wrong since forever.
And anything at that height will disappear beyond the limit of your sight. Many times we can see time-lapse footage of the sun that shows it getting smaller as it moves away from us. Now, that's not always the case, since the sun is travelling around the North Pole. The closer you are to the north, the less you'll see the size change.
What about the Northern Hemisphere winter though? When in your model, one in which, let's remember, Eric himself has shown, the sun is further away from you.
But from locations beyond the equator, you'll absolutely see the sun's size change. And that could never ever happen if the sun was 93 million miles away. You wouldn't see the sun change at all.
And we really don't. All the clips you were showing there were done so without the use of a filter. As I showed earlier, here is Phuket Word filming the sun with a filter. He lives in Phuket, which is about 500 miles from the equator. He showed no real angular size change whatsoever.
Our eyes cannot see farther than what they were designed to see, but that is no reason to keep them closed.
There's also an effect that occurs under certain conditions called atmospheric lensing, where the sheer amount of atmosphere, as well as the rain between you and the sun, acts like a lens and a prism, magnifying it greatly, which leads to another observational proof that the sun setting is an optical effect. At such times, when the sun is setting over the sea, and it seems as though it's half hidden by the horizon, then you can zoom in with a high-powered zoom camera and see that it's actually still above the horizon. It's just an optical illusion.
Okay, so how about if you zoom into the sun when it's setting like this? Or this? Or this?
Pay attention to the sun rays here. This alone proves our local sun, and so do these shadows.
How does that prove a local sun? You've not explained how those shadows prove anything.
So what about the moon? We all witness the moon only illuminating the local clouds around it. That is because it is also a local light, but one with opposite effects from the sun. As we can all agree, shade from the sun is cooler than direct sunlight. But did you know the moon's shade is actually warmer than direct moonlight? The moon produces cold light, something the science priests must have forgotten to teach us all about in school.
This has been debunked hundreds of times. That area there that is in direct moonlight is completely exposed, so is subject to a phenomenon called radiative cooling. This means that there is nowhere for the heat that is radiating off the Earth to go, unlike under the chair there, which immediately warms the local area.
Not only that, but at times we can see stars through the moon, proving it is not some solid rock 238,900 miles away.
They are not stars, just highlighted areas of the craters.
In the 60s, true science regarding the moon was the shadow band topic of its era.
I must consider myself to be an ordinary, humble person who wants to serve mankind with what man has striven for from the beginning of consciousness, with truth and understanding of the world.
Well, now, one thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Watch Eric hang off this man's every word.
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is plasma, cosmic plasma. Gravitational theories are out, and the new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved. This fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
It's 2021, buddy. I'm afraid it hasn't been confirmed.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it.
And the Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Well, that will never happen.
People actually believe they walked on the moon, talked with Nixon, played golf, drove a car, and planted a flag.
If you really believe that Neil Armstrong took the first step, then why do you give any credit to the cameraman already there waiting for him?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe because it wasn't a cameraman? It was a camera, yes, but one in which was lowered on the outside of the lunar module pointing back towards the exit.
These guys were all US military men coerced into acting. They wanted the money and power that came with the deal, of course.
Michael Collins, rest in peace, was the only man in Apollo 11 who didn't set foot on the moon. His salary was $17,000 per year. That's about the equivalent of $119,000 today. Now I think that's pretty bad considering he was risking his life for his job.
The problem was, they were terrible actors. They couldn't even pretend to be excited, knowing they were lying to the world.
The thing is, they weren't actors. Surely if they were faking it, they would have brought in the best actors of the generation.
But the show had to go on. Michael Collins and Neil Armstrong rarely spoke in public about it. But there was one man not shy about lying to your face. The spokesperson for the Apollo deception.
It's my pleasure to present Colonel Edwin Aldrin.
No handshake, hug, smile. Their facial expressions are similar to those experiencing constipation.
Ah, constipation. Good one, Eric. Let's try that one too. Yep, that's way more popular.
Not celebrating an accomplishment.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with a great sense of pride as an American and with humility as a human being that I say to you today what no men have been privileged to say before. We walked on the moon.
I mean, they couldn't pay them enough to look up and smile? Society has always debated these planned Apollo events since day one, never imagining then that almost 50 years later, they haven't had the balls to fake another.
Well, they are going back. Artemis is scheduled for 2024.
As a tattooer, I talk to hundreds of people a month, and people are actually really starting to wake up with everything that's going on right now. I mean, people are sick of the lies. This is the biggest deception ever.
Now, I've obviously got nothing against tattoo artists. Hi Kaz, if you're watching. But again, they're not scientists.
The globe, the spinning ball globe, is the biggest deception. If NASA was legit, literally all they would have to do is one thing. Take one of their satellites, zoom in on someone in Australia, upside down, driving a car.
Actually, our satellites are pretty sophisticated nowadays. You can get some pretty good images if you just do the research.
Or in the ocean, swimming upside down. That's all they would have to do, just zoom in. But they won't do it, they'll never do it.
It's been done several times.
We have the footage of them in the space capsule, still in Earth orbit, covering up a small section of the window so you can see through the circle and making that look like that was the Earth. And this is a joke. I mean, how do people think this is real?
But if they've never been to space, why are you using that as an argument? It's almost as if you're accepting that they were in space.
I think it's hilarious that NASA will straight up tell you we destroyed the technology to go to the moon.
Is the Saturn V rocket in use now? Yes or no?
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
But they destroyed the technology and they can't go back. It's ridiculous.
Is it? NASA still don't have a launch vehicle. Why is that ridiculous?
There's an interview with Buzz Aldrin, actually, where he's being interviewed by a little girl. Her question was,
why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
Totally taken out of context here, because Buzz goes on to say that at the moment we simply can't afford it. Classic flat earther quote mining there.
After 50 years of lying to humanity and perpetrating this giant fraud, he's sick of the lie, and his conscience, he had a moment of humility, and his conscience wouldn't let him lie to this little 8-year-old girl.
You genuinely see and hear what you want to, don't you?
This silly globe model with water magically attached to it, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, shooting around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, and rocketing through the universe at 500,000 miles an hour is just the goofiest, silly thing that I've ever heard in my life.
Incredulity alert! Incredulity alert! Incredulity alert!
They want you to think you're a monkey man, a purposeless accident created by nothing, that exploded from a big bang that was created not by scientists, by a priest, mind you, while they steal $58 million a day in taxpayers' money to show you cartoons. CGI. They just have to show you enough of Hollywood and magic tricks and for you to believe the nonsense.
That's some pretty expensive CGI right there, isn't it?
It shocks me how many people actually believe they're floating above our heads. It's all filmed here on Earth. Outer space is a fantasy.
Yet you argue that the astronauts were blocking the window in the spaceship to portray a globe Earth. You can't have it both ways, buddy.
The Earth is a stationary plane. Google bubbles in space. You can literally see bubbles coming up from these astronauts' helmets. It's ridiculous. When I saw it, I was like, this is a joke.
So many times during spacewalks outside the International Space Station, we can see air bubbles rising up. Can you touch on how there are air bubbles in space?
What an absolute embarrassment that is to actually ask that question. And no, they are not air bubbles, because air bubbles don't move in different directions. They're ice crystals that fly off the astronauts and the space station when disturbed. Right, I think this would be a good time to take a break here and wrap up this first segment. I told you it was going to be a thorough one, didn't I? Tune in next month for part 2. Please do share this video as much as you can. I want it to appear in every single search engine possible, and I want it to be seen before the actual film itself. Thank you very much for watching today. If you enjoyed it, then please do like and subscribe. I'm going to give you a little like goal here. 50,000 likes for this video. See if you can get that. Just enough time to once again thank Skillshare for sponsoring today. Really appreciate it. Remember, the first 1,000 of you to click my link in the description get a free trial of their premium membership so you can explore your creativity. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great weekend, and I'll see you all on Tuesday for some more tinfoil fun. See you then. Last month we dissected the first part of Eric Dubay's Flat Earth documentary that he entitled Level. Well, I know you've all been waiting patiently for part 2 of the documentary Level, and today we're going to do that. But this time I've brought some friends along with me. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Flat Earth Friday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. So part 2 of this series of videos is going to look at the middle third of Eric's documentary. And as I said, we've got some guests to help us with these parts. And remember, we want these videos to be noticed before the documentary itself. So 50,000 likes, that should do the trick. Press it now. And we're going to start with old channel friend Where's Wally, and he's going to continue where I left off with Bubbles in Space.
Yeah, often on the outside of the space station, you'll liberate little pieces of, it's a really harsh environment out there, and the outside of the space station gets beat up pretty good. And sometimes, you'll see just little flecks of paint or something that you might have disrupted floating away from the suit, and that's generally what that is. I've never seen any kind of air bubble anywhere.
Could it be that you're filming in an underwater pool and you're not really out there? All right, well, I just encourage everyone to look up Bubbles in Space, #Bubbles in Space. Thank you very much. How's Bubbles in Space doing? How's what? Bubbles in Space.
Bubbles in space?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
No? You Mr. Kelly?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? You don't remember the question from Tampa about the bubbles in space coming up from the helmets?
No.
Yeah, you guys are in an underwater pool, remember?
Oh my word, how cringe is this?
We know. Just remember.
What's up, man? Can you sideline the hashtag bubbles in space?
Hashtag bubbles in space.
Bubbles in space, brother. What's your word on it?
What is that?
Yeah, you were asked that 2 times in the past couple months, actually, about bubbles coming out in the spacewalks.
Oh, you're that guy.
I'm not that guy. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm not gonna write that.
And then,
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Astronauts on harnesses as well. Anything to say about that?
Come on then, Wally. Let us know what's really going on.
A spacesuit is called by a super simple piece of kit called a heat rejection porous plate sublimator. And what is this magic heat rejection porous plate sublimator, I hear you ask? Well, it's a plate of sintered metal. It allows the liquid water to pass through it. And it has the vacuum on the outside and the 5 psi of O2 pressure on the inside. So the water is pushed through this plate. Water's not sucked through the plate by the vacuum, wake up yourself. It's pushed through the plate by the pressure inside the suit. But once it hits the vacuum, it evaporates, it cools, it freezes, and it seals the plate. So it keeps sublimating and keeps cooling the plate. The liquid then can be cooled on the inside, and the metal conducts the heat to the ice, and some of that ice sublimates. And it stays sealed, and any water passing through the plate freezes almost instantly. But now when it's first turned on, the plate is warm, the water is warm, and it passes easily through the plate. There's a bit of water over the inside of the airlock. And this is the source of the bubbles that we often see Flat is referring to during the initial stages of a spacewalk. It's just water ice spitting out of the, wait for it, heat rejecting porous plate sublimator. So why look at just one thing floating around in space when you can have hundreds? Nobody does space hacking better than a Russian with a huge knife. Here is one hacking into the Soyuz to inspect the hole that they repaired from the inside. Let's have a look at it from the outside. Man, look at those bits and pieces going left, right and centre all over the place. No particular direction, but whichever direction they pick, they just keep going in it.
You can literally see bubbles coming up from these astronauts' helmets. It's ridiculous. When I saw it, I was like, this is a joke.
Now, as for the NBL, neutral buoyancy laboratory images of the training sessions, they highlight one very obvious point that you, Eric, and your flatmates don't know about or choose to ignore. So look at the difference in the apparent sizes of the faces inside the exact same helmet. Any ideas why, Eric? Maybe you sit cross-legged and think about it for a second. Of course, it's refraction. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. See, the water outside Jeanette's helmet has an SG of 1, and that nothing outside of Drew's helmet has an SG of 0. So that makes a lot of difference for the light coming from inside the helmets to outside. Do you notice that her face appears about half the size of Drew's? Now this is how you can tell whether the image was taken in the neutral buoyancy lab or actually in outer space. So Eric, not in a pool, in a vacuum. Sorry, dude.
Do I have anything to say about it?
Yeah.
I have anything you want me to say about it. What do you want me to say?
Whatever your thoughts are. I just want your honest opinion.
About what?
There's video evidence of guys hanging from harnesses in the International Space Station.
There really isn't. It's all debunkable, of course.
We need to keep going. There's a very long line. Thank you so much. Can you please step forward? Thank you so much.
How about
please step forward,
selling
please.
a book of pictures
Excuse
with
me,
taxpayer
security.
money? How about that?
Thank you so much.
Taxpayer money?
These were all on taxpayer dime, wasn't it? Not this one, but the picture book.
Go back over here. You know what you can do? You can sell the same pictures yourself because they are public domain. Absolutely.
They should be free to the taxpayers.
They
is
are
what it
free.
Is. Why are you selling it for $40?
You can do whatever you want with them.
Well, you're doing it a disjustice by ripping off the taxpayers.
You know
what you're doing.
Wow, how embarrassing does it get? Honestly. Hugh Jars, you're up.
Greetings and salutations, this is Hugh Jars, and it's my turn to level out Eric Dubay.
Once people start realizing that we've been lied to on a grand scale, everything from the government to our schools, it all just comes crumbling down.
Paranoia much? It all comes crumbling down, does it? Methinks you're using hyperbole. And no, it's not pronounced hyperbole.
Hyperbole.
Oh, Julia! Anyway, pretty much everything doesn't really care what the shape of the Earth is, except navigation. And that would come crumbling down if the Earth was flat, because none of it would work. The fact that navigation works on international scales proves that the Earth is round, because it's based on a globular module.
It shocks me how many people actually believe they're floating above our heads.
This is just conspiratorial rubbish. He's just trying to convince you that it's real, by being sincere. And as they always say, if you can fake sincerity, you've got it made. Well, that's the opinion of one person. We have no reason to take this person's opinion over anyone else on the planet. And there's over 7 billion of us, you know. Besides, I've seen the ISS many times. Anyone can. I've even taken this picture of it, which shows that there's something real up there. If it's all fake, why? Why would they go to the trouble of putting something up there just so that I could photograph it? Well, me and anyone else on Earth.
I've seen the International Space Station on YouTube and the astronauts floating about in it while they're orbiting the Earth at 17,000 miles per hour. You can't do that unless you're in outer space.
Well, not for more than about 25 seconds, no. That's how long the Vomit Comet can simulate weightlessness. And that's about pretty much the only way you can simulate weightlessness on planet Earth.
Practice makes perfect. Give me another
It's
week.
as simple as using a zero-G plane and strapping a harness to their belt. Then, just like Batman movies, they remove the wires using a computer. At times, the manipulation reveals itself. Green screen and blue screen technology cannot always be flawless.
Well, correct. They aren't flawless. Doesn't mean they're being used. And the glitches and the guy disappearing and things like that, part of that's digital artifacts. Pretty much all images are done on digital cameras these days, not on film. And others like the guy disappearing into the wall, that's from a TV documentary and was caused by editing. It wasn't a live feed. The very fact that you use it shows that you're trying to be deceptive.
How can you keep denying this trickery?
Because it's so easy to deny something that has plenty of reasonable alternative explanations. Think of it this way. Camera glitch versus worldwide conspiracy to hide the fact that the Earth is flat. I think it's clear which is more likely. And with that, back to you, Wal.
Here we see Europe's space agency at NASA's studios using a blue screen with grids. This technology has been used for decades.
Oh, Eric, really? Blue screens? I would have thought that you would actually know what chroma key is by now. It's been a while. I mean, everyone is in Zoom meetings these days. We all know what works for a virtual background and just how white doesn't work very well at all for chroma key.
Trying to pretend like they always use them for science experiments, knowing damn well it was too late.
Well, Eric, you know what is funny? It's that Tim Peake isn't even completely in front of this supposed blue screen. And in the very video that you've shown, the ball that is thrown is shown sideways to the supposed blue screen. What's up with that? Now, what's even funnier still is this 5-year-old post by A1 Bill Shackleton. Now, he's a self-confessed flatty, and even he was able to research the blue screen claim, and he saw that it was a fake claim years ago, and it was going viral. And Bill, as a, well, proper flatty, he was well disgusted. He wanted to do proper research. So Eric, hang your head in shame while you sit and contemplate your belly button. You're 5 years out of date, mate. Oopsies.
These people lie to your face in the hope that you will not do your own research.
Oh, much like you, Eric. Both in the fact that you haven't done research and that you hope people watching you don't do their research.
NASA knows that most are too lazy to dig through its massive rabbit hole.
And again, just like you. I mean, what evidence have you come up with? Nothing. Just your own personal incredulity and rubbish conspiracy theories.
Yet, in the meantime, they just love to rub it in your face.
Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. The world's a stage and they're putting on the magic show. Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. The world's a stage and they're putting on the magic.
And And once again, pretty much everything he showed there was not from a live feed from the ISS. It was from a documentary. Some of that was digital artifacts, some of that was editing. None of it was live. If it wasn't live, that means it's been manipulated. And if it's been manipulated, you can't trust it as evidence. Except, of course, I guess, if you want it to be true. But as any adult knows, wanting something to be true doesn't make it so. And once again, the fact that you use stuff that you know was edited, you know came from a documentary and not a live feed, shows that you're trying to deceive. And if by some small chance that you generally don't know that just shows you don't follow your own advice and do your own research.
They steal $52 million per day from American taxpayers.
Steal $52 million a day. Steal it. Well, this year's NASA's budget is $6.56 billion. Divide that by 365 days, you get nearly $18 million. Nowhere near $52 billion. And when you compare NASA's paltry $6.56 billion to other major items on the US budget, like Social Security at $982 billion, Medicare $705 billion, Medicaid $389 billion, Income Security $285 billion, Federal Civilian and Military Retirement, just their retirement, $163 billion, Veterans Programs $101 billion, other programs $157 billion. And it's not even mentioning the military or anything like that. Are all the people receiving this money stealing it? If so, they're stealing a hell of a lot more than NASA.
Just to create a fantasy display of men orbiting their spinning pear-shaped space testicle Earth.
Yeah, you know when someone knows that they've lost the argument when they start using language like that. He's so desperate to paint it as some sort of absurd idea that he really is out of ideas.
Their green screens are awful. When they are live and something glitches, their reactions are always priceless.
And once again, they're using digital cameras. They have glitches. And you saying their reaction is priceless is simply your interpretation. It doesn't mean it's so.
I'm not sure why you globeheads keep defending all of this. Are you waiting on NASA to finally come forward?
Well, we're not really defending it. We're defending against insanity becoming mainstream. You've arrived at a conclusion with zero evidence, or evidence that you've just chosen to interpret the way you want to. If the whole world ran like that, we'd all be dead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear citizens of America. We here at NASA have been lying to you all since the 60s about our projects, operations, and missions into outer space.
Over to Astronomy Live for this one.
Astronomy Live here. This scene depicts what they think it would be like if NASA were to admit to the world that they were lying all along and that their missions were all fake. Of course, this would require some explanation of independent footage of missions occurring in deep space. But it's interesting to note that they accept the premise that low Earth orbit missions are totally real.
We have never been higher than lower Earth orbit.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go.
Sure sounds like they just conceded that low Earth orbit is real. Let's take a closer look at the context of the clip they showed. This is from Expedition 43, featuring astronauts Terry Virts and Samantha Christopher Reddy.
And what comes after the International Space Station once its mission is over? How do we ensure the presence of humans in space?
Well, that's a great question. The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go, and this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
So when we look at the full context of the clip, Terry Virts was asked about what comes after the International Space Station. That's why he was comparing it to what we can currently do with currently flying rockets. This chart from Everyday Astronaut compares some of those rockets and compares them to the Saturn V. Even Falcon Heavy, when fully expended, is only capable of sending 15 tons on a TLI trajectory, a translunar trajectory towards the Moon. SLS, by comparison, in the Block 1B configuration, will be capable of sending 43 tons to the Moon in a single launch, almost on par with the Saturn V rocket from the Apollo program. That kind of super heavy lift capability is necessary to send a crewed vehicle with capabilities similar to the Apollo program all the way to the Moon.
Every image we have shown you is CGI. Our films are mostly done in an underwater buoyancy facility.
The astronauts do train for spacewalks in a large pool at the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. That's not a secret, nor is it a conspiracy. It's just the most practical way to practice for working in weightlessness. But it begs the question of who it is I filmed boarding the rocket, launching into space, and why it is that I can see the space station through my telescope if it's all CGI. Now, in terms of the money spent on NASA, NASA currently makes up about 0.5% of the federal budget every year. It peaked at the height of the Apollo program, and it's been declining pretty much ever since. In this next clip, Eddie Bravo talks about his previous love of space. It might be why he's the owner of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. He also commissioned a manager of a Planet X Jiu-Jitsu. Maybe what he actually loved were conspiracy theories.
Beyond Venus, 93 million miles from the Sun, is Earth. Its great oceans forming the clouds and air currents which warm and irrigate the planet.
I thought I was better than people and because I knew so much about space. And every now and then I'd watch all that and wonder, what? This is all cartoons.
The documentary they just showed is from 1976, simply titled Universe, narrated by William Shatner.
Beyond Venus, 93 million miles from the Sun, is Earth.
The documentary does use a lot of simple animation to depict the concepts that it's illustrating, but I don't think anyone would mistake this for genuine footage. Indeed, this is just a documentary, not primary source material, and it's interspersed with some real photos of space taken by various telescopes. At the end, they give credit to the animators. They're not trying to hide the fact that animation was involved, but that doesn't mean that all images of space are fake.
And every now and then I think to myself, it's weird that we're not watching any actual footage of space. It's all CGI. All DVDs on space are all CGI. There's nothing real. And everyone watches that, they believe it, the narration is all programming.
All CGI? No real footage? Even going back to that 1976 documentary they showed, here's a shot of the Orion Nebula. And if I fade it over to my own picture of the same nebula with the same orientation, you can see it's a match. In fact, the technology has advanced so far from 1976 that I can actually get an even better shot of the same nebula with my own telescope from my own front yard.
What's above us and what we're on, we're being lied to. Do we have Hubble?
Do we have a Hubble? Yes, we do. In fact, I've tracked the Hubble Space Telescope with my own telescope, and I found that the pointing attitude matches the expected attitude, given its observing schedule and where it's supposed to be pointed in space.
Why don't you point it at the Earth and get some awesome shots of where we live?
So why don't they point the Hubble at Earth? The answer is actually sometimes they do, for calibration purposes, but Hubble is not designed to track the surface features on Earth as it orbits rapidly overhead. If it were, it would be a spy satellite. Given the time and the coordinates of this exposure, we can predict where Hubble should have been pointing at the Earth using its orbital elements. Let's take a look at what that simulation shows. Halfway into that 2-minute exposure, Hubble should have been pointing at Villahermosa in Mexico. But Hubble was not tracking the surface features of Earth, it was tracking coordinates of the sky. So what does that result in when you actually look at the picture? Well, this is what the resulting picture looks like, a series of streaks. Each of the street lights, buildings, cars, or other light sources on the night side of Earth all streak through the image as Hubble tracks the coordinates of the sky very accurately. That's what it was designed to do. It was not designed to be a spy satellite. Next, Eddie complains that there are no real photos of Earth from space. He claims that they're all CGI. In fact, he says that there's only one photo that NASA took in 1972 that they even claim is real, and that they admit that the rest are fake. That's not true. In fact, NASA takes photos of Earth from space every single day. You can go to this website, epic.gsfc.nasa.gov, and check out current photos of the Earth from space. More on this in just a moment.
Of Earth from space. I want to see a picture. I want to see tens of thousands of them. I want to see the sun over here and the moon over there. People should have posters and all over the world. People should have these epic pictures of the Earth from space with the moon over here and the sun over there and the planets. There's none.
Literally zero. They do sometimes exaggerate, like claiming they used a NASA camera 1.6 million miles away to take this alleged video of the dark side of the moon.
And what a set of images they are.
It doesn't take a genius to see how undeniably computer-generated this image is. And yet, you think we are the moronic one?
No, but there's no evidence to suggest that these are computer generated. At this point, your personal incredulity over this video is in overdrive.
I would rather be thought as a moron for not trusting criminals than a sellout and a traitor for defending them.
The reality is...
The things that come out of your mouth, are you saying something that a defense attorney would say, or are you saying something that a prosecuting attorney would say? When it comes to the government, that criminal, that's like John Gotti, I'm saying that a prosecuting attorney would say, not saying like, we'll prove it, it's a criminal.
So, every person or authority that says something different than what you idiot thinks is a criminal. Don't you think that's a little too Dunning-Kruger of you? Nah. I need to remember who I'm talking about, the major conspiraflurf Eddie Bravo, who actually believed that the Earth is flat, although everyone can test it by himself, even without the need to collaborate with other people.
Without a doubt, whatever's coming from the government, I need the kind of evidence that would shut down a case. If I don't see the evidence, why would I believe it?
As I said, everyone can test it, what I actually did last year. You can find it under the playlist Experiments in my channel.
What is gravity?
I have no idea. Okay, next question.
So you're telling me gravity is strong enough to hold oceans onto it, battling inertia from the spin. So gravity's holding oceans, inertia's trying to pull it out and make it fling. Skyscrapers would fling off the Earth, but this gravity's holding these. It's so strong, it's holding the ocean, but it can't hold a helium balloon.
Earth, big, generates strong gravity field. The inertia, or the centrifugal acceleration, at the equator is about 300 times weaker than gravity. So no, there is no real battle between them. Learn basic physics, for fuck's sake.
Things that are less dense go up, things that are more dense go down. Has nothing to do with gravity. Where's gravity at with butterflies?
The ocean, as far as I know, doesn't have wings. Butterflies' wings generate lift that opposes gravity. Dead butterfly cannot flap its wings, and therefore falls into the ground and stays there. The density of the butterfly has nothing to do with it.
You would think that if gravity's so strong it's holding skyscrapers down to it, we would be flat on the ground.
There is gravity all the way out to the moon and beyond.
Again, learn physics. Your inability to understand science, Mr. Bravo, is not a valid argument against it.
Long before the theory of gravity was a glimmer in Newton's imagination, the natural physics of density and buoyancy already perfectly explained why apples fall down. Objects fall or rise based on their relative density to the medium surrounding them. Apples fall because they are denser than the air, while helium balloons rise because they are lighter.
No gravity necessary.
Wrong, 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 wrong. The law of gravitational attraction, not theory, is responsible for the direction of the falling and the magnitude. Relative density is only responsible for their sign, as in positive, negative, or zero.
This is why raindrops fall down through the air and air bubbles rise up through water. Everything seeks its relative density and rises or falls until settling accordingly. This is why a tiny pebble sinks to the bottom of the ocean, but gigantic cruise ships and aircraft carriers stay afloat on the surface, because even though a pebble is so small, its mass, relative to its volume, its density, is more than water, so it sinks. And even though a cruise ship is so large, its mass, relative to its volume, is less than water, so it floats. If Newton's apple had landed in a puddle, he would have seen the apple only fell through the air because it was denser than the air, but then floated on top of the water because it was less dense than water. The natural physics of density and buoyancy was understood and agreed upon for centuries before they changed our textbooks and started NASA.
Archimedes already got this idea almost 19 centuries before Newton, but the density, as in mass over volume, can't explain the initial direction. Why up or down and not any other direction? The answer is the law of gravitational attraction. Fg equals big G times m1 m2 over r squared. And what does NASA have to do with basic physics? The law of gravitational attraction predated NASA by about 300 years. That's just lame.
All our space information is coming from NASA. Werner von Braun was the director of all 6 moon missions, and he's a
I assume that Eric didn't ask Eddie Bravo if he wants to be a part of this video, so I'll skip my critique about Eddie and go straight to Mr. Dubay. The camel doesn't see its own hump. Funny how you mentioned that von Braun was a Nazi, but not the fact that you are a fucking Nazi. For all of you who don't know, yes, Eric Dubay is an anti-Semite, Holocaust denier, well-known Nazi, and I really don't understand why people take him seriously, especially the flares in Israel, that large portion of them are 3rd or 4th generation to Holocaust survivors.
Is that not a comic book? That's a comic book.
My fellow Nationals, I am sorry to say I am leaving you to join the elite.
Operation Paperclip.
In the United States of America.
Operation Paperclip. My people in Germany, all they want is freedom and peace.
We want to welcome you to the US of A.
We must divert their attention.
I'm going to make so much money. It's crazy. To brainwash a nation, we will need animation.
I want to bring my technology of airplane models.
I want to work with Walt. I want to see the best people. We need to get the indoctrination started. If people believe an airplane can go to the moon, we might be able to do it. To brainwash a nation,
I will need help.
We will need animation. Please bring in help. United States of America. Action.
Oh, geez, who hired these guys?
Jesus Christ, these guys can't act. Bring it up into an airplane. Dark window.
You just record the Earth from a dark window.
We can do that on the computer afterwards.
People will fall for it.
People will fall for it. The people must know.
And the heavens declare the glory of God in his firmament.
Showeth his handiwork.
The people must know.
The people have to know.
Let's see. Bad dubbing, edited video, misquotes, lies, more lies, and probably some more things I missed. If this is the best you can do in order to deceive people to believe in flat Earth, I don't see any future for this delusion.
We come from this big bang and fluffy puffy pixie fairy dust and unicorn farts, and all of a sudden consciousness just came out of that. No, it was designed. It's not an accident. Everything according to their bogus Darwinian theory of evolution, all of it points to a godless, atheist, demonic, demon-crat lie.
And of course, a musician astrotheologist is the one to ask about science. What a joke. 99.9% of the religious people on Earth appeal to the scientific consensus regarding the beginning of the universe and the beginning of life. And if you, nutcases, really knew how to read the Bible, you would see that it is all written there explicitly.
NASA is a corporation, and they are the same people who run Disney. In fact, they are very, very similar, because what they do is they entertain people. They're not teaching people. They don't want people to know the truth about the cosmos.
NASA is an administration that deals with research in the space. They don't teach anyone. If you want to know about the universe, go and learn physics, and then you could do experiment by yourself. I mean, real experiments, with everything taken into account.
They're entertaining them with CGI images. Every image you see, image, not photo, every single one of them, all of those are computer-generated images. They are not photos. Everyone you see on Google is a CGI image. It is not a photo.
Go to the nearest telescope shop, buy a decent telescope for about $400 and take a look by yourselves. The only difference between what you will see and what there is on Google is the resolution, because NASA have much bigger and better quality telescopes, some of them in space.
And you can't tell that they are CGI. Either there's two things wrong with you. You are either or you are mentally deranged. You do not have control of your own mind.
Rule of thumb. If someone tells you that you're mentally deranged because of some idiotic reason, most cases that the mentally deranged one is him, not you. That means, Mr. Bonacci, the brainwashed is you and your idiot friends in the flat earth delusion.
Your mind has been indoctrinated, it has been brainwashed, and you've been duped, and you still believe in Santa Claus and the upside down spinning Santa ball, which the Jesuits invented in 1542.
I don't believe in Santa Claus. The Earth, on the other hand, is measured to be a globe with radius of 6,371 kilometers.
Prior to 1542, every single culture, all our intelligent ancestors will be rolling in their graves knowing that their stupid progeny actually think they live on a spinning globe that people bow down to for their false ideology.
None of our ancestors had the tools to measure the Earth, and the leisure or privilege to actually think about it. So the best I can do is give them this. If they thought that the Earth is flat, which is not so obvious that they did, it is understandable. But there is not even one Bible verse that has flat Earth in it. So everything you flirts say about our ancestors are speculations in the best case and lies in the worst.
Actually think they live on a spinning globe that people bow down to for their false ideology. Zoom up to Venus, zoom up to Mars, and you will see they are lights. They are stars. Hence all the intelligent pre-Copernican astrologers, Ptolemaic astrologers like myself, taught that all the planets are wandering stars. They are luminous bodies.
Congratulations, you can use a P900 out of focus. Honestly, it's not that hard to focus a camera. Here's an idea though. Why don't you use a telescope instead? Because that was actually designed to do what you're trying to do.
Just as the Egyptians said, just as the Greeks and the Mayans and the Aztecs said, just as our intelligent ancestors said.
Ah, clearly it is too difficult to focus a camera.
If all the stars, as they say, in every constellation are all at different depths by millions of light years, how come for thousands and thousands and thousands of years of hurtling through the sky, there is no distortion, no difference in luminosity of stars?
Well, actually, to use a recent example, the star Betelgeuse dropped in brightness from around October 2019, however returned to normal brightness in April 2020. Also, the positions of the stars do change over a very long period of time. This is how the Plough looked 100,000 years ago. I'm now going to hand over to Critical Think at this point.
Who's this Santos guy? Oh, he's a musician and an astrotheologist. Just another incredulity merchant.
The same boring stars keep turning over our flat, stationary, plain Earth forever and ever and ever and ever. So we are not moving.
Wait a minute. If we're on a stationary plane with the stars painted on a spinning dome, then why are there two contra-rotating circular trails there? That's not going to work on a flat Earth. And why is that a perfect circle? I mean, if you were under the North Pole, yeah, but on a dome spinning, that should be elliptical anywhere else. Now here's a star trail I took myself from Perth in 2019. You'll see the Southern Cross in the sky there. Look at that, a perfect circle in a clockwise direction. That doesn't work on a flat Earth. So if you want to believe you're on a flat stationary plane with the stars painted on an upturned fishbowl that's spinning at a breakneck speed of 5,000 kilometres an hour, then I say...
You are stupid. Stupid beyond your wildest imagination. Or you are mentally deranged.
Thanks, Santos.
Back to Hugh Jars now, everyone.
My turn again.
And to all those astrologers out there who think they are astrologers, teaching heliocentrism, like Laura Eisenhower.
Hang on, a couple of things here. Astrologers who think they're astrologists. If you say they're astrologists, then why wouldn't they think they're astrologists? I suppose astrology is based on the heliocentric model, but then again, that's reality, so why wouldn't it? Of course, astrology is a pseudoscience, which means it's all bunkum. I've actually heard an astrologer say, oh, astrology is a science. It's a type of science called a pseudoscience. Can you believe it? And anyway, Laura Eisenhower, great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. So what? We all have great-grandfathers. And some not so great, I guess. Anyway, what's this guy's beef with Laura?
The granddaughter of her grandfather.
Yeah, that's the normal way it goes. A granddaughter is the granddaughter of the grandfather. Do we really need to explain everything to Flurfs?
The president of the US, calling herself a heliocentric astrologer.
Well, as I explained earlier, there really aren't any other kind.
No such thing exists.
Well, I'd agree with you, but then we'd both be wrong.
A very young age, wondering why the heck did I land in the Eisenhower family. I was faced with the opportunity to go to Mars. Some people wonder, why the heck didn't you go to Mars?
Perhaps because no one has?
But my intuition told me, from really recalling a youth filled with a lot of insight about what I was here to do, was to not go anywhere.
That is... Laura, you are a false prophet.
She wanted to go to Mars, so she's a false prophet? What drugs is this guy on?
The line going from the AC to the DC...
You forgot the lightning bolt.
...is called the line of the Earth, and it never moves. AC to DC, ascendant to descendant, that's called the line of the Earth.
What rubbish are you dribbling about now?
According to the astrologers of ancient.
Oh, of course. People from ancient times never got anything wrong, did they?
And that never moves.
Well, I think he's right. Something that doesn't exist does never move. Man, that was a terrible double negative.
Proving that there is no movement of the Earth calculated in any astrological chart reading that you do.
So let me get this straight. Because she uses something that's bunk in a way that you don't like, then the Earth doesn't move and therefore it's flat? That's your logic?
You never account the movement or the position of the Earth in relation to any of these planets because it's that line of the Earth which we call the horizon.
I think we go to the next video. That was just too stupid.
Speaking of horizons, some guy, he filmed a mountain. He was flying over Texas and he used his camera to film a mountain. This mountain was supposed to be hidden by 35 miles of curvature with the current circumference of the Earth that we're given. I don't know, just sitting straight up. He's just right there. It's not hidden by 35 miles of curvature. It's crazy.
The legend that is Ruhif is going to deal with this one. Away you go, buddy.
Alrighty, so the claim is that this mountain here is Cabo San Lucas at a distance of 760 miles. And he also claims that we can see the Gulf of California. So before we can analyze it, we need to know where he was when he took the shot. Thankfully, he gives us a few seconds of GPS coordinates between the 25-second mark and the 29-second mark. And then in some unbroken footage, he actually takes the shot that we're looking at the 68-second mark. So we could just do an extrapolation in Google Earth, which is fine. But if you can be accurate, why not be accurate? So here's some Python code that does the extrapolation for me. and these are the coordinates that I'll use as his observer location. Now, for literally no reason whatsoever, I'm going to drop a big red blanket onto these Chinati Mountains in Texas, and for that I used the polygon tool in Google Earth. And then we had a bit of a play with the heading and the tilt and the field of view just to get all the landmarks lined up. All right, now let's start fading out, shall we? So here are the mountains we're looking at in Jay Tolan's image, and let's do it. Uh-oh, that's no good. And I think we're done here.
Amazing work. And finally, Critical Think is going to round off this part 2 of debunking Eric's documentary.
You can watch the boat disappear with your naked eye, and then you could pull up this camera and you could zoom in on the boat that you just watched disappear, and you could bring it right back into full view.
No, that boat's just not over the curve. That's not a boat. Now that's a boat. Let's wait for this boat to sail out of sight. Now we'll zoom in and bring it back. Oh dear. This one didn't come back. Let's try another. Wait. Oh, no, not that one either. How about another one? Third time lucky? Oh dear. Nope. Looks like flat earthers need some lessons in identifying boats.
Incredible stuff. Next month it will be part 3, and that will be just me debunking the rest of Eric Dubay's documentary, and I can promise you it's going to be a banger. But for now, that's it for Flat Earth Friday. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, then please do press the subscribe button. And remember, we're going for 50,000 likes on this video, so hit the like button as well. Just enough time to once again thank Dashlane for sponsoring today's video. Remember, visit dashlane.com/SimanDan to try it out for free and use my code SimanDan to get 50% off if you want to upgrade to premium. I have been SimanDan. Have yourselves a great weekend, and I'll see you all on Tuesday where we're going to learn how to make moon water. See you then. In the last 2 months, we have looked at the first 2/3 of the Eric Dubay Flat Earth documentary Level, where he and his friends talk about the same old nonsense that we've seen and heard before, with some snazzy effects thrown in. Well, today we take a look at the third and final part of his documentary, where we finish it off for good. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Flat Earth Friday with me, SimanDan. Thank you very much for joining me. Right, back to today's video where we are dissecting the final third of Eric Dubay's documentary. We catch up with him and his buddies when they start to mock channel friend Professor Dave.
Ask any airline pilot what the shape of the Earth is. When they're done laughing at you, they'll tell you it's a sphere.
That's not, and no, the ground looks to us like it's standing still.
Did you notice any curvature while we were up there?
No.
No? What'd you see while we were up there?
Just the blue sky, white clouds.
Yeah, is it flat or?
Pretty flat.
Pretty flat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is an odd one. No, you can't see the curvature of the Earth from a plane usually. However, pilots should know that everything they use and everything they do on a plane is because of and related to the fact the Earth is a sphere. Additionally, the horizon is a product of Earth's curvature. So whilst you wouldn't see curve from left to right, you'd still see things appear from over the curve in front of you.
Thank you.
I was reading a lot of stuff on the flat Earth.
Okay, yeah. True.
That's true?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
All right.
God bless, brother.
Did you notice any curvature while we were up there?
Curvature? No.
No? There's no curvature?
It's just all flat.
Casey, how are you, mate? Pleased to meet you guys. There's no way there's curvature. We're round on flat, aren't we?
Definitely.
We are, aren't we? Thank you.
It looks like even pilots aren't immune to the flat earth YouTubers.
Most pilots know their plane is flying over a plane. A stationary plane. Always a smooth and level flight. We never feel the plane dipping its nose down. We only feel the landing. Which flight route matches reality in your mind? If you chose the left, you may need medical attention. Everything beneath you while flying is level and motionless. Just as expected, flying over a stationary plane. Sometimes it's hard to see far ahead of you, but other times...
You could probably see the Rockies from Kansas.
Wow.
But here it's a clear day, but if it's smoky or hazy, obviously we can't see much.
The world is so generous in its beauty, and you do your best to take pictures of it. It's just flat and gorgeous.
Silly actor not. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Having recorded a few pilots that may or may not be flat earthers, that doesn't mean that most pilots know that the earth is flat. Most pilots, as Professor Dave said, would laugh at you.
Earth is flat and gorgeous, but they trick you to believe something else. Not every pilot instantly connects the dots and keeps quiet. Sometimes it can hit them 25 years later.
Hier in Australië en dan is want dit ding behoudt zijn stand, dus dit blijft blauw en dit blijft bruin. Het is niet zo dat we opeens omklappen de verkeerde kant op. En dit was voor mij dat ik dacht, oh man, waar heb ik dat nooit eerder gezien na 25 jaar in de cockpit? Dus zo geïndoctrineerd zijn we dus allemaal. Ja, het is gewoon heel vervelend. Het is gewoon heel vervelend. Dat je daar al die jaren naar hebt gekeken en dat het kwartje nooit is gevallen. En ook zeg maar, toen ik eenmaal wist dat de aarde plat is, dat je naar buiten kijkt en dat je denkt, waarom heb ik nooit gezien hoe plat het eigenlijk is?
I find it very hard to believe that a true pilot with 25 years experience doesn't know how a gyroscope works.
Better late than never. Most pilots may have skipped over their training manuals. In their Flight Dynamics Summary, Section 112 explains all you'll need to know about what you're flying over. Heck, the military knows the same thing. NASA admits it as well. In tons of documents available to the public. They just assumed nobody would pay attention.
No, they just assumed that the people would understand that on all the documents you're showing here, the flat earth was mentioned as an assumption. Look, the word flat even has quote marks around it.
This comes from the Army Research Laboratory. This one's from the CIA. There's another one from NASA. This report documents the definitions of linear aircraft model for the rigid aircraft of consistent mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. This comes right from our own government. Now I have available 44 documents. Who do I give them to, sir?
You give those to the city clerk, please.
Which is this person here. So what I want is a law that's passed that we can't teach anything about the globe, and we have to teach the truth of how things are.
This guy wants a law to teach flat earth. Good luck with that one.
From the documents to the imagery, they are not flying around a curve heading to outer space. They are flying over a stationary, flat plane. Stop falling for the illusions. Every rocket goes up and then levels out. Most of NASA's rockets launch from Florida and head towards the Bermuda Triangle. Well, besides the occasional... They're not shy about showing the truth in plain sight. 125 alleged miles up, and they show you our level horizon with a local sun.
That doesn't look level to me. It actually looks convex. That tells you that the lens of the camera is skewing the image.
Then quickly switch cameras to their fisheye lens, as if that didn't just happen.
No, I think you know, Eric, that it was always a fisheye lens and that it was constantly distorting the image.
You have to pick one. You can't have both. Looks as if their cameras go about as high as most hot air balloons do before they burst. Who do they think they're fooling? But let me guess. You saw the curvature in the images from satellites. The thousands of magical orbiting aluminum tin cans floating in space. It's all animation and games until one comes crashing down on your squad. Many crashed satellites have been reported the world over, and the one thing they all have in common is giant helium balloons attached to them. Of course, satellite technology is real. We get our weather information, communication equipment, and even some internet service from them. Look up Google Loon, for example. It's not that they wouldn't use the magical floating satellites if they could, it's that they don't physically exist, nor does the globe.
Weather balloons do exist, obviously, not refuting that one. But so do satellites. Here is a picture of one taken from the ISS.
They have been sending these up one at a time since it all began. I will allow them to explain it.
He got a patent on that in 1950, and those early balloons were so large they didn't have any way to launch them, except they actually launched them from aircraft carriers.
Modern scientific ballooning was born. It was also the genesis for NASA's newly developed super pressure balloon.
The reason for super pressure ballooning is they have absolutely stable altitude day, night, and it doesn't matter how cold the atmosphere is. They are sealed.
So your shape is always the same, you always displace the same amount of air, and therefore you have the same amount of buoyancy all the time.
What is the point of this? No one is disputing the fact that we put up these sorts of balloons. What I do find confusing though is that you absolutely believe NASA when they say they're putting up these types of balloons. No doubting that whatsoever. But when they say they've been to space and the moon, then they're all liars.
This day-to-night altitude stability allows super pressure balloons and the sun.
Hi, I'm Matt, and this is NASA Now.
NASA's been using balloons for science research for over 30 years. The exploration that can be done on balloons is continuing to grow. The standard balloon that I fly is about 660 feet long when it's made. So when it's inflated, it's over 400 feet tall by 440 feet wide. Think of a dome stadium. That's how big my balloons are.
So let me get this straight. It is now public knowledge that they send up satellites on massive helium-filled balloons.
Yes, and as I said, no doubting NASA about this, is there?
As you should know, NASA is the largest consumer of helium in the world, for obvious reasons. But the issue with society is that they never critically think. Just think for a second here. If these are sent up to provide the world with all of the important information we need, and I'm sure the entire process is expensive and difficult to accomplish, then please explain to me what in the flat world do these pathetic animations do for you? Do they make you happy inside? Are they so super duper cool that you cannot see past the obvious CGI? The fact of the matter is everything NASA sends up on a balloon simply hovers above our motionless Earth. That is why they rarely speak about orbiting satellites, and of course, they never show footage.
No, they never show footage. Never show any footage at all.
Here is some footage of a random evening with a man, the moon, and his Nikon P900. Notice anything floating up there?
So, who cares, Eric? No one is denying that these balloons exist. It's like me trying to prove that there's no sharks in the ocean by constantly showing you pictures of whales.
Forget it, Bart. It's so bright out you can't see anything in the sky except the Fox satellite.
Another remarkable fact about NASA's balloon launches is that many are launched from Antarctica. Is it because we cannot travel past certain parallels to witness their launches with our own eyes?
No, you can't witness all of the launches, but they release a video for you all to see. Standard.
What else are they hiding from us over there? It would be nice if someone was allowed to truly explore Antarctica again. It sure has been a while since the last guy.
Greetings to you, my young friend.
Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. Strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being.
What does this prove? Byrd saw a small portion of Antarctica. He knew there was a massive amount of it left to explore.
And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime. Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. An area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being.
Ah, it's Flat Earth Millionaire. He owes me $200,000.
Since late 2014, one of the biggest things I've heard, the Earth is flat. Why don't you find the edge and fall off? Why don't you make up an expedition and gather people and go find the edge and take a picture of the edge? Well, my response is, can you fall off the edge of a lake, a pond?
Yes.
An ocean? Let's see if you have any imagination left in that brain of yours. And pretend this is all the water in the world. This is the 71% covered earth-filled pond. All the water of the world. So let's just say this is trillions upon trillions upon trillions of gallons. You've got the continents, the islands in the middle. In the center where all compasses point, you can circumnavigate, circle the lake or the pond left or right. But as you venture outwards towards the banks, towards outer space, what happens? Once you pass that 60th degree parallel and you hit the ice wall, the ice cliff of Antarctica, what happens? Do you fall off the edge? Is there an edge here?
So what are you saying? That this ice wall is infinite?
Because we know the physics of water is to find and maintain level if you've been paying attention. And also water must be contained. It is contained. We climb up the banks and we keep going outward, southward. What happens to their control when millions of people travel
beyond the 60th parallel?
They knew this was going to get out. They knew people were going to wake up. What if Star Wars is true? What if this extraterrestrial, these extra terrains, they're telling us the truth, minus the vacuum of space, because they got to put a Hollywood spin on it, don't they? Star Wars, Star Trek. What if you Globers can have your Star Wars and your Star Trek at the same time? Isn't that awesome?
That'd be awesome, yes.
How's that make you feel?
The timeline goes as follows. So in 1955, Operation Deep Freeze starts. And when Admiral Richard Byrd gets back, he comes on live television and tells us he found more land, the size of North America. They quickly start NASA. President Eisenhower calls over the Nazi traitors, Operation Paperclip, to start the upper space mind control program. Don't look out there, look up here. Look everybody, we're going to the moon. Then, in 1959, 12 nations started the Antarctic Treaty, followed by 42 more nations where they have decided you or I cannot travel or explore any part of Antarctica south or past the 60th parallel without military clearance, without the aid of a guided tour. Do you really think that this is just a coincidence?
Okay, matey, how about you go and explore Antarctica without a guided tour or without the military? You won't be coming back. It's all to do with safety.
Imagine they find more land. Imagine there is more land out there, more to explore, more to reside, more resources. You think they tell you and I about it?
I'm sure a lot of you have heard about my $200,000 Globe Challenge.
Yeah, I won that.
And up to this point, no one has been successful at completing the challenge.
Oh, that is bullshit.
We've had a few clowns here and there that have stepped up to the plate.
Here we go.
And claimed victory.
That was me. I'm famous.
But at the end of the day, you can't make water stick to the bottom of a ball, much less spinning. Okay? You can't show where sea level turns to sea curve. There's no curvature on the x-axis or y-axis.
That stuff is flat.
Here's a fair challenge here for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Why don't you get off your fat, lazy butt and out from behind your screens and your scripts?
Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles.
So Earth got a little bit wider at its equator than it did pole to pole.
So you spin, when you spin pizza dough, it kind of flattens out.
Like spinning pizza dough,
Yeah.
it just gets flat.
If you were a cosmic giant and you came up to Earth and you rubbed your finger over Earth's surface, it would feel as smooth as a cue ball to you.
Wow. If you shrunk Earth down to the size of a cue ball, it would be one of the smoothest, roundest cue balls ever made.
Not sure where they're going with this.
That's how round Earth is. So it's not actually a sphere, it's oblate. It's like pear-shaped.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's funny, 6 years ago I sent a whole bunch of questions for you to answer. I notice you haven't answered them.
That's because you're Dave Murphy, a flat earther who drinks wee-wee.
You're not a scientist. You're an actor with a couple of science degrees. There's people with those same qualifications flipping burgers in Burger King.
Is there? Well, even if there was, why is that a problem? At least they'd be working. Burger flipping is obviously beneath Dave. The funny thing is, though, that even the lowly burger flipper thinks the Earth is a globe. So, yeah.
So you don't impress me.
Neil Disgrace Tyson, you are a lying Jesuit thug and a deceiver. You are a degenerate from Good luck to all your lying when you're down in doing favours for and remember my name when you're in there, Santos Bonacci.
Hey Neil, you talk about pears so much. Why don't you try eating a few, you fat
Charming. What a real scientific documentary this has turned out to be.
That's actually good.
Hey Neil, if the level and motionless plane is so easily debunked, so easily refuted, then why don't you just debate Eric Dubay?
Why don't you get off your fat, lazy butt out from behind your screens and your scripts
and debate Eric Dubay?
Good one. Eric doesn't debate. Eric, how many times has MC Toon offered to debate you? And how many times have you completely ignored that request?
You've heard the name Eric Dubay, but you're scared. You're chicken. You won't debate Eric Dubay because you don't have a script and lines and people telling you what to say. You know you'll get demolished. Why don't you just come on a podcast or any type of show, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe an hour, if you've got the and debate Eric Dubay.
I'm sure Neil feels a similar way to me about this. He doesn't debate established fact. However, I will say this, Eric. You can debate MC Toon live on this channel with the potential for a huge audience. Come on, Eric. You've got your mates to goad Neil deGrasse Tyson into a debate. Why don't you step into this arena and show us all what you've got? Of course, it'll all be variations from this shoddy documentary, so I guess you won't be accepting. Email me, Eric. Let's set this one up.
See how much of a man you are there, Mr. Mic Drop.
Looks like we're gonna have Eric Dubay, he said he's agreed to do it, talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
What?
Yes. I had asked you to debate one of them flat earth guys.
No, I can't, no.
I know. We talked about it and we were gonna have him on Skype.
No, what we do is, and I think this is a diabolical plot, so that the next time we can ship people en masse into orbit, they all want to be the first in line because they know we're going to send them, so that they can see the round Earth. They're going to be the first ones in space. Just so they can stop annoying the rest of us.
I don't think you're correct.
And I know that you're not correct. Why the backpedaling, Neil? You already agreed to debate me on Joe Rogan's podcast. The show was scheduled, posted on Joe's site, announced on air twice, and then you suddenly decided that you, quote, don't debate flat earthers.
Ah, man after my own heart. And why would you?
What happened? I'll tell you what happened. Someone at NASA told Neil, we're not going to let you go head to head with Eric Dubay because he'll make you look foolish.
Of course you did, Eric. How can you record this audio, Eric, when your head is shoved halfway up your bum?
Prove me wrong.
Yes, you'd like that, Eric, wouldn't you? Well, I think you're too scared to debate MC Toon. It can't be that hard, Eric. You were willing to make Neil deGrasse Tyson look like a fool, weren't you? MC Toon should be easy compared to that, shouldn't he? Come on, Eric, prove me wrong. Well, there we go, Eric Dubay's Flat Earth documentary level completely debunked from start to finish. Please do like the video. As I said in the first video, I'd like to have these 3 videos visible and available before anyone even sees the actual original documentary. 50,000 likes and we'll really step up this campaign to get Eric to debate MC Toon live on this channel. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. It'd be truly appreciated. Just enough time to once again thank CuriosityStream for sponsoring today's video. Remember, click on the link in the description and put in my code SIMANDAN and you can get CuriosityStream for an entire year for only $14.99. I have been SIMANDAN. Have yourselves a great weekend and I'll see you all on Tuesday for a brand new collab. See you then.